So we're going to continue. We already called the meeting to order. We went into executive session. So we'll go right into liaisons. Paul, is there any Board of Finance or Town Council members present?
No, there is not.
Okay. And the Labor representative? I don't think he's here either. Hopefully they're all enjoying end of school.
Yes.
Yeah. And the principals are off. Is Mary going to join us or is she off as well?
I told Mary not to join us tonight.
Okay, there you go. They deserve the time off. Couple audience of citizens. Any public remarks, comments, questions? Thank you. Do we have the raise the hand option here?
There is, or they can unmute themselves and we'll take that as a sign to begin speaking.
I'm not seeing any. Are you?
No.
Okay, so we'll skip that. We'll get back to it later. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Nancy, okay, Martha, second. Yeah. Comments, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
There we go. All right, thank you. Superintendent's report.
So just a couple of quick updates. As the budget ends, you'll recall that we are spending $117,000 out of surplus this year to take pressure off next year's budget. So we gave you a complete list of everything that is being ordered before June 30th. And that allows, from that 117 that we will not need for supplies next year, it allows us to get the additional grade 5 teacher. And then $41,000 goes back to the general fund. In addition, there is some surplus above and beyond the 260. And we are buying at this point surgical masks, N95 masks, gowns for the nurse's office, and plexiglass shields for the students in grades K through 5. And I'll explain that when we review the current reopening plans. But all of those are PPE that we feel are necessary to reopen in any format for next year. And then finally, there was a question from one of the board members about final transfers for the year and what this current year looks like. But transfers take place all the way into July as bills come due. A lot of times we get bills from the magnet schools for special ed services very late in the year, and they get credited against this year's budget. So this year's budget, even though we're not spending after June 30, sometimes we're paying into July 30. So we'll give you a final list of various transfers sometime at the end of the summer. Or you can contact Karen. Yes.
Yeah, not to interrupt, but isn't the vast majority of transfers every year special ed related?
Yes.
Okay. That was it, sorry.
Okay. And that's budget 1920. For budget 2021, there was just a little confusion, and I just want to clear the record. One of the town council members was concerned that our manufacturing program was already part of the budget. We had presented the budget to you in January and February, and then in March, we were accepted to the position, to the partnership with RAM. And so we did not actually earmark the tuition money. We knew we would find it from someplace because obviously from March to May, there's a lot of changes. But that's the situation with the administrators, and my increase for next year were balanced out so that we could pay for the manufacturing program. So while it is a concession from the administrators, the town council person was correct in that it didn't lower the budget, but it paid for an item that we had not found funding for. Now, this was an item that was strongly supported by both Democrats and Republicans on the Board of Finance and the Town Council. So I see this as a great use of money. I see this as a really positive partnership for us to build. I also had a quick question from one of our board members on staffing for next year. Now that everything, the dust had settled, where we were hiring, where we were moving people around. So I'll just give you a very quick rundown. We're in the process of hiring a memorial and center school social worker. That's a position that's available from retirement. We're in the process of hiring a long-term sub for memorial reading specialist. That is due to a pregnancy leave. We're hiring a center school psychologist. That is due to retirement. A grade 5 long-term sub that is due to pregnancy leave. Grade 5, which is the additional position that was added by the town council. Middle school world language, which was one of the new positions in the budget. Middle school math as a result of Christina Amaral becoming the interim assistant principal. Middle school ABA, which is the program. The ABA program now moves from memorial and center, actually from memorial into center in the middle. So we're hiring both a center ABA and a middle school ABA. We filled the center school ABA with a staff member from the district and shuffled things around. The middle school ABA is also not a number increase, it's a staff shuffle. We're hiring high school English as a result of retirements, high school world language as a result of retirement, high school math as a result of a budget increase, high school family consumer science long-term sub as a result of pregnancy leave, high school guidance long-term sub as a result of pregnancy leave, high school special ed as a result of retirement, and high school stars. We've talked about the program increasing. So you can see we're hiring quite a few replacements and then the new positions that you are aware of. The administrators have been working hard. We've filled already 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of those positions. We've had some great candidates come through. You'll get information about new teacher orientation on Friday, August 21. We're hoping it's going to be an in-person orientation. As you can call, Mary Clark and Rich Fielding do the bus tour of East Hampton as part of that. As 2 former bell ringers, they give a great bus tour. And we're hoping that that will certainly be an in-person and not a virtual orientation. But we have some great staff members coming in, and I hope the board, if you're available that morning of the 21st, will stop by and meet them. I think you're going to be really impressed. The last item before we get to the program presentation on reopening is just an update on the reopening committee. We have formed a reopening committee. It has membership from all 4 buildings and 2 board members who are sitting on the committee, Nancy Kohler and Nancy Oakley. And we have meetings scheduled for Wednesdays in July 8th, July 15th, and July 22. Russ Melmed from Chatham Health will be joining us at the first meeting. And then from there, each building has already formed a building reopening committee so that whatever plans the district settles on gets interpreted now at the building level. And the Parents Advisory, the Superintendent's Advisory Council will meet on July 17th. It's a Friday morning in July. I'm going to invite everybody. In fact, the letter I sent out today invites parents to come to that because I am certainly looking for parent feedback and parent participation. I am keeping them out of the district level committee only because there will be union talk and some concerns over MOUs and things like that. So I'm keeping the parents' input kind of as a separate side-by-side committee along there as we plan to do whatever the governor decides. Rhode Island has released their reopening plans. Massachusetts has released their reopening plans. And we are supposed to get them possibly by the end of this week from Connecticut. I serve now on the CAPS executive board, the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents, and we're going to get a little bit of a hint of them tomorrow so we can give feedback to the governor before he releases them publicly, either the end of this week or the beginning of next week.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions?
Hearing none. Before you go into the program, Neil, I see you joined us. Anything you'd like to add? Welcome. Again, thank you to all you guys these last few months. Outstanding, everything that has happened.
Thanks for your support as well. Yeah, Paul mentioned pretty much at his end of this, just what he said. One of the and we're also kind of just getting an idea of what some of the other local districts are doing as well in this period of time, just to kind of compare, their timetable and things as well.
Yep.
And that's it.
Good. Hope you enjoy your summer.
Thank you.
Could I just ask a question before we move on? I don't know if
Yeah.
we'll cover this at all. I just wanted to ask Paul about the technology that we'll be purchasing for next school year. Are you finding any trouble at all with supply, with everyone trying to get product that because of supply chain issues or whatever may be hampering that? Do you have confidence that we'll have everything in place that we need?
Yeah, based on our source for Chromebooks, it's a person who's on the state bid. I think we acted early enough to get them. They won't be in. I think Rich thought most of them would be in around August, but we are going to be able to get them.
Oh, great. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, then we will move on. We have our presentation of the whole reopening plans.
So I emailed the board this packet of information. I know it's a lot to go through. I'm just going to give you some highlights because this is our plan prior to getting any guidelines at all from the state of Connecticut. So I think it's important to understand that if we are given the option, our intention is to open our schools with every teacher, with every student. And, I say that in all respect for anything that could happen between now and August 31st, but our plan is for a full reopening. Because I think if you plan for a full reopening, you kind of take every contingency into possibility. If we have to start with distance learning, we know how to do that. We've already started that up once we could get that going. The more complicated thing is to open our schools completely, and how do we do that safely? So that's what this plan outlines. Just to give you a sense, on page, if you jump all the way to page 13 in the plan, and if you don't have it, it's fine. I just want to let you know that we are ordering a series of disposable masks. We've ordered about 30,000 masks, and that covers students that may forget them or students that don't have their own, teachers and other staff members who may need one when they come in if they forgot theirs, and obviously the school nurse and the health providers. We've ordered gloves, gowns, reusable eye protection, face shields, a good waste disposal in each building, and the N95 masks or the KN95 masks, whatever we can get a hold of. We've also ordered 1,000 what we're calling plexiglass deck shields, and there's a picture of them on page 14. So that if we do end up with all of our students in an elementary classroom, we can set them at tables or whatever their setup is, with the plexiglass shields around them, protecting them and protecting the teachers. So we've already ordered those supplies. In fact, they are already coming in. There's companies now that have stockpiled the stuff and they are ready to ship it out. So we've ordered that, and I think we're going to be in very good shape for all of those supplies. Like I said, this is a plan that allows us to reopen. It does assume certain things. It assumes that people are in masks if required by the state of Connecticut. It assumes that families will do a screening and teachers will do a screening of themselves before they come in. It assumes that people stay home if they don't feel well, because while everybody is hoping that we open, it really only takes a single case to shut us down for 2 days to 5 days. And were we to find ourselves to have 3 cases, we're likely shut down for 3 weeks. Now, these are confirmed cases. So, if we agree that we want us to stay open, it's only through the cooperation of our families that we actually remain open. When we get guidelines from the state, and you see this kind of reflected in the plans, if the governor says there can only be 12 students in a classroom, or there can only be 12 students on a bus, then obviously we are talking about an AB day where students go every other day, or an AB week where half the students go 1 week and half the students go the next week. There's just no way, with certain limitations added to the number of people that can populate a classroom or can populate a bus, that we could possibly have double the number of classrooms, double the number of adults, double the number of buses. It's just not realistic. It's not realistic for any school district. So we would be talking alternate days at this point. The rumor is that the governor wants places to reopen. And I think everybody realizes that there are going to be some restrictions. And once we get our hands on them, I know we can plan for them. If they become too restrictive for the opening of school and maybe things lighten up in November, we could be looking at some odd schedule of, like I said, every other day for students or every other week for students. The way Rhode Island plan goes is, hey, be prepared for a full opening, but be prepared for some modification or hybrid of a full opening. And it really comes down to, when push comes to shove, the number of people that the governor will let in a classroom. Now, if we can have double that, 12 people, if we can have 24 people in a classroom, then obviously we are going to do everything we can to spread the children out as much as possible. My expectation would likely be that, to start the year, kids are in masks and kids are behind those flexible plexiglass shields. And, that's how we start the year. When you look at the elementary school, you say, well, gee, how can you get 24 kids in? We've created that flexible furniture and reading nooks and, the beanbag chairs. All of those would have to go because we can't have kids sharing furniture and stuffed animals and comfy beanbag chairs and big furry chairs and other things like that. Every student would have their assigned chair or space or something. So by moving those aside, now we create more space to, social distance the kids appropriately. This is all a guess, but I feel like, at least we started with something, and, our plans are there, and we will add any restrictions, obviously, that the state of Connecticut goes with. But my intention is not to be more restrictive than the state of Connecticut. When I see parents, they all say, Paul, we're going to open, right? And I say, yes, we're going to open. I just don't know what it looks like yet. I'm waiting for the guidelines. If we found we had medically fragile students who, because of respiratory situations, have a doctor's note that say, look, they just can't come back, we will find ways to accommodate those students as well. So when I say we're reopening for a full reopening, if there are students who, with a doctor's note, that say, it is just still not a safe environment for them, we're not going to leave them behind. One mother emailed me and said, Paul, I guess I'll homeschool my student and then when the vaccine comes out, I'll re-enroll. And I said, no, that's not going to be necessary. We will educate every student, in the most appropriate environment. I don't have the staff to give people an option, like you can have home or school, because I can't have teachers doing both. Teachers who are, with students are going to be filling up their day with students, even if we go every other day. So we will find a way to accommodate, those families whose children absolutely cannot come back. But we don't see it right now, unless the governor tells us otherwise, that we will be offering that as a guaranteed option for those families who might like that.
Paul, can I ask you a couple questions?
Absolutely.
All right, you mentioned something about 3 positive tests closed down the school system.
Well, I'm looking around at CDC guidelines and other states' guidelines. And what they're saying is if you have a confirmed test, a confirmed positive in your school, you would likely need to close down for 2 to 5 days. And the reason is for that time period, that one teacher or that one student was around a number of kids. Now, if it's a kid who gets it, and you can say, okay, for the last 2 weeks, this kid was only in this room and only with these kids, you could shut down a classroom. But I think with the contact tracing that, is going to be done casually or, as detailed as we can by nurses, if there is a case, it is likely that we would need to shut down a building for 2 to 5 days. And then if there were 3 cases, I think the Chatham Health District would look at that as 3 cases in one building. In the last couple of weeks, there haven't even been 3 cases in East Hampton necessarily. So to have that much of a concentrated thing, I think we would be looking at, a 2-week closure perhaps.
And do you think that that's going to be mandated by the state?
No, I think that we will do that in cooperation with Russ Melmet, and that's why him having come on July 8th. Because what the plans dictate, and this is CDC guidelines, if you have a positive case, you must call the local health district.
Right.
So, Russ is going to say, okay, Paul, student or kid or, administrator, and, is this person in one class all day, or is this person, covering lunch duties or cafeteria duties or recess duties? And, the more contact that person has, the longer the possible outage of the school while we clean down those areas and just kind of, put everybody aside for a few days. And,
Okay, so it's really the Chatham Health District that's kind of driving that.
Yes. So the Chatham Health District is the one that would advise us to close for any period of time. But I would need to report any case immediately to him and have our nurses kind of do some contact tracing to see what the spread was.
Okay. And then, so you talked about, and I went through part of this. So if we're doing this like alternating day, cohort A, cohort B.
Yeah.
So if cohort A goes to school on Monday, what does cohort B do on Monday?
So let me just give you the cycle. So if it's alternating days, cohort A spends the day with their teacher or teachers. The teachers give them enough work and assignments to
Deal with stuff the next day.
We would also have a Zoom in option. So if the kid was confused or was absent, they could Zoom in and re-see the lesson given by the teacher. But I can't have teachers do distance learning on the opposite day because they're teaching the second half of the class.
Right.
The 12 members in cohort A, and then they're reteaching the same thing the next day to cohort B.
All right, so
the idea would be to load them up with the work and they would do the work at home the next day.
right. So it wouldn't be a situation where a teacher is teaching the students in the classroom and the students that are at home.
No.
Okay. All right.
The teachers are in the classroom every single day. And that's why I like the alternating day better than the alternating week, because the alternating week, it's a long time for kids just to be on their own with a bunch of assignments. The alternating week, some people are saying, is better for mitigation of the virus rather than the every other day. But I see it instructionally problematic.
I would agree with you. I mean, and that's, you know, I mean, there was the reopening of our school's priorities.
Yep.
I understand safety of students and staff is critically important, but, you know, our goal is to educate children. And, you know, I'd almost want the appropriate educational opportunities to be the #1 option.
Sure.
But,
No, and I understand that. And I guess I put safety first because I think that's.
I think it's what you have to do. You know, and again, and I have my own personal thoughts about this whole thing, which I'm going to keep out of it, and I'm just going to
Don't
try.
hold back, Mark. Go ahead.
No, because then I'll never stop, and nobody wants to be here till 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, and what I want people to understand is, this is not, if we can open, I'm going to open the schools. This is not going to be my decision that, we need to do the AB day. Our hand is going to be forced in that direction if that's what comes to it. And, we won't be the only ones doing that because, if the governor says 12 kids per classroom, I'm not sure there's many towns in Connecticut that can say, yes, we can do that and have all these extra spaces and all these extra adults working with the kids. But Mark, to your point, we are committed as we can to go back to offering athletics and, jazz band at night and the musical. Our intention, maybe not on the first day of school, but as time goes on, we're going to try to bring back everything that we can bring back. And I think if the onus is on our community to say, look, we can do this, but the virus kills us. So, if people say my kid's not going to wear a mask when we should have been them wearing a mask, then, we'll all deal with the consequences should they occur. But it's tough because, we will be under, executive order or guidelines from the State Department of Education that we will need to follow, along with the expectations of the Chatham Health District to remain open and remain healthy. So there's going to be.
The reality is we're going to be between a rock and a hard place, regardless of what we do. That's the end result.
Yeah, and
now,
there's certainly the expectation of parents. I mean, I would say 95% of the parents want their kids to go back to school in the fall in a safe, structured environment.
Yeah, and to that point, so you mentioned that if there were students that had a respiratory issue and the parent was really concerned that was so severe that they can't go back to attending an in-classroom situation.
Yes.
And I know we may not have an answer to this, but what about if a parent is just plain uncomfortable? There's no specific respiratory or other physical issue, but the parents just say, I'm just not comfortable having my kid go back to school. Does that force them into like at a home learning situation?
I don't have an answer for that yet because I just don't have the numbers of that. I'd want to see guidance from the state. Because right now, if a parent said to me, last fall, Paul, I'm just not comfortable sending my kids to school, the only option is to homeschool them. So I'm not sure what the requirements are going to be. Obviously, if there's a doctor's note, we'll take care of the kid. But for the parent who says, I think I'm going to wait, I would need guidance from the state and from our attorney in the best way. Because I'm not going to have the staff necessarily to just have one teacher per grade level offline working with kids who are distance learning only.
Right.
Because what that does is that pushes the class size up even higher, unless there's a critical mass for each grade level. As it is, I would pay teachers extra to work after school with some of the kids who, were medically fragile and required to stay home. And they could also, for socialization, Zoom into the class during morning meeting and other things like that. So we'll keep them connected because, if there's a vaccine in January and they say, okay, I'm ready to come back, we want them to be right with where the kids are as well.
Okay. And let's give us the best scenario, and then the state says we can bring all of our students back into the classrooms. I noticed there was one maintaining 6 feet of separation at all times.
Yep.
So space, admittedly, I haven't been in the classrooms recently, but space-wise, to do that with a 23, 24 child classroom, do we have the space? Are the classrooms that large that can accommodate that type of social distancing?
On the smaller classrooms, I would need to use the plexiglass shields. So where
Okay.
I could not establish 6 feet, we will have those plexiglass shields that go around the kids on 3 sides.
Okay.
And I think by taking out reading nooks and everything like that, we'll gain some square footage.
Some extra space.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think at high school, we have the option at the high school of, classes in the T-Bell, classes in the auditorium, classes in the library and the back library room. So, we can create spaces, and, because chances are the cafeteria will be used for kids to get their lunch and then go back to their classrooms. It is likely that we could even hold, even in the elementary and middle school and high school and memorial school, we could use, the cafeteria for some spaces as well. As soon as we know the guidelines, we're gonna start getting creative and see how we best use our space.
Okay. I know you mentioned that you had ordered a bunch of equipment.
Yes.
Does that include the no-touch thermometers that we would potentially need?
Yes, we've also included some thermal scan thermometers. Now,
Okay.
in no state plans are they saying every kid gets scanned before they come in, because of the practicality of it. To get 600 kids scanned before school starts, would just be too much time. It would kind of be visual checks of the kids, and then, this kid says they're not feeling well, scan them right away. But like I said, this is going to be a partnership with families that they check kids at home and they say, look, my kid's got a fever. I have to go to work, but I know I need to stay home with the kid today because, if we start spreading it, and, a school is the type of, especially in winter, you see how quickly stomach bugs and other things move through. We don't want COVID spreading among the kids. Now, I also know it's a population that doesn't seem to be getting COVID, but they can spread it. There's not scientific evidence that they can't come home and give it to their parents and grandparents yet. So I think we operate as if every kid could get it and can spread it.
Okay. All right. And I guess I'm just going through it. The way this is written, I know it's focused on reopening,
Yes.
but it at least to me, kind of read that this is sort of like the plan for the entire year in a sense of, like the wearing of the masks or face covering.
Sure.
There isn't anything that I've seen that describes it being adjusted for evolving events.
Yeah. What's our exit strategy of this?
Right.
This great
Yeah.
plan.
And again, that's just just a question.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, nothing would be
Go
better
through
than,
this 100 times already
Right.
from now.
yeah, no, and I understand that. And I think that, this is how it looks when we reopen. And as we can pull back, we pull back. People say, watch out for the second wave around November, December. It'd be nice if, the situation is so low that kids wear masks on buses, but the governor says, okay, only the adults need to wear masks. And, we put them around the plexiglass shield still. It's easier to begin the year with everybody in masks and then say, as of September 15th, masks are optional for kids and staff. Or October 1.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Paul.
The reopening committee, how often is their schedule of when they're meeting?
So the first meeting is July 8th. They all have copies of the plans. And what I'm going to do is when I get the guidelines from the state, I'm going to merge these plans, and I've listed all the sources that I stole from in the back. Some of them are my ideas. Most of them come from other states at this point, but I will merge these with the state expectations. Hopefully I'll be able to do that next week. And then the following week is the first meeting of the district reopening committee. Russ Melmet, I said, from Chatham Health, will be there. And, we're going to meet 3 times, and then parents are going to meet once. And then we'll start handing it over to the buildings because, as the district level, that's the easy work. The difficult work now is passing it on to the building because, it may look a little different at the high school than it does at the memorial school. It's a little easier for us to say, okay, the cafeteria will be open at the high school periods 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then we have the study hall eat. And, because the study halls are smaller than a lunch wave, then, there's not as much burden on our lunch wave. And the high school kids, we can say, socially distance in the hallways and just go to a comfortable place and eat and don't make noise. You can do that with high school kids. You can't do that with kindergarten and first grade students. So, both plans are going to be a little bit different. So the real work is, after we feel like we've got something that meets the state expectations, letting the buildings get their hands on it and turn it into their own. That's the key work in end of July, early August.
And just a little side thought with all the equipment, the masks and the gowns and all that stuff being ordered and coming in, and as we continue ordering it, any thought with merging and going in with the town to meet their needs, whether the police department, the town hall, kind of maybe get better bang for the buck in mass quantity ordering?
Yeah, a lot of the places we're getting from our state bid prices too. So they can order anytime from the same companies.
Okay. Board members, any other questions? Amanda, Jim, I see you guys are in. Welcome. I know you got in a while ago, but any other board questions? Nancy, yes.
Yeah, I was just curious with the with what cleaning and sanitizing and all those sort of expectations that will be coming to light, going back to the schools, and assuming that, of course, the classroom teachers will not be burdened with wiping down plexiglass separators. Are we comfortable that our current custodial staff is able to handle whatever that might look like? Do we have to think about cost of additional time? What does that look like as far as staff levels and the?
That's something that we'll need to consider as we look at, what exactly needs to be done. The news coming out is that, the virus doesn't survive on surfaces as long as they thought. However, that doesn't mean we're not going to clean things, because you're right. If this is my plexiglass shield, I want to make sure that every kid is using the same plexiglass shield every day. And it does need to be wiped down. We're going to make sure that every kid, 6 through 12, they're going to have their own Chromebooks. We are going to let 6th graders and 7th graders keep them 24/7 this year, just so they always have them. And K through 5, we're going to do our best to assign a kid to the same Chromebook so that there's, the same Chromebook basically. But things like, the communal pile of crayons, the communal bowl of markers, the communal bowl of math manipulatives, all of those are going away. We've ordered extra math manipulatives, so basically every kid can have their own as needed. And I think that, making sure that kids use the same materials each day will cut down on our need to, wipe down every plexiglass shield every single day. It can be something that the teacher at the end of the day gives a wipe to the kid and says, wipe down your shield, and then they fold them and put them on their desk. Or, we hire an extra person to go and clean 1,000 shields every single night. We're going to do it for as reasonable as possible.
Thank you.
And safe. And
Other
Mark,
board-
good instruction too, I promise.
Amanda, yes.
I'm just wondering, we've been talking about physical spaces and germs, and if the kids are, especially the younger kids, are going to be distancing 6 feet, what plans are the staff going to have time to make plans for how to do social emotional learning and how to get along with others, given that the challenges of keeping kids apart? That's going to be tough, but yet really necessary, because
Yeah, so we're very committed to social emotional learning, and that's one of the 4 areas that we're going to focus on next year, even more than we do now. The second step curriculum that we use is social emotional learning piece. And based on just the kids coming back after distance learning and all the complications that next year brings, social emotional learning is important. It's why we upgraded the Newsella subscription. Remember our initial expenditure was $109. We upped it to $117 because we purchased the Newsella modules. That second step is, social emotional learning is embedded into a lot of lessons in K through 8. So we're really going to focus on social emotional learning, and I think that's a huge piece for next year, especially because we talk about kids distancing, but the goal of this is to create cohorts where the kids move around the building as little as possible. Easy to do in K through 8, harder to do in high school, obviously, because if I take AP US History, I've got to go there, and if I don't take AP US History, I'm going in a completely different place. But what we envision is that art may come to the classroom, PE may come to the classroom, music may come to the classroom, and then the kids are in that room as much as possible. Or we get the kids outside for PE, as every weather day possible, they're outside for PE instead of the gym moving around. So add that on to, okay, I'm with the same 20 kids all day long, and I'm in the same room all day long. I think, some social emotional learning is in that case is going to be really important as well.
Okay. Looks like it. Any other final board questions? All right. Thank you very much. Unfinished business. Anyone have anything? I think we're good with that. Yep. Board of Ed retreat. All right, board members. So every summer we do a retreat and we focus on different things, different topics, review of different items. Originally, it was scheduled for next Monday, June 29th. which I'm glad I want to bring this up to change. The thought was, why don't we wait until more of this reopening plan comes out, things get a little more settled. We could do it later in the summer. So is there any, I want to open it up to board members, ideas of when, even hopefully by then we'll be able to get together and meet somewhere and do it instead of on Zoom.
We will socially distance in the new town hall.
Did you have an idea in mind, Paul? Like, you know, end of July or?
How does Monday, August 10 sound? By then we would have firm plans.
It is a regular scheduled board night, you know, or the second Monday.
I will be out of town that day.
Yeah,
I will as
I'm a
well.
no.
Okay, that's out.
August 17, Monday, August 17.
I won't be around that week.
I won't be here that week either.
Okay. So how about we do this? How about, Paul, can we have Rosemary, you and Rosemary go through and pick 3 dates
Yes,
without those 2 in it? And email it out and we'll do a survey and see if we can get the majority in one of those dates.
would a morning meeting work for people, or would you rather keep it an evening meeting?
Evening, please.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, we'll send out some evenings and we'll pick a day.
Yeah. Okay. Policy committee meeting dates.
We had 3 dates picked, 9, 16, and 23, but I think Jim can't make those days. Is that correct, Jim? Jim, you're on mute, if you can unmute.
Jim, are you there?
Jim,
I'm here.
There we go.
okay,
Can you hear me?
yes.
Okay, good.
I believe you were not available on the 3 dates we scheduled policy.
Correct. I work, 8 to 5 out of my home and can't bend those dates. We're just pre-scheduled meeting times.
Yeah, the mornings are tough to do, but
If we did a 5 o'clock meeting, does that work for people?
I'm good with that.
that works better for me, yeah.
Would that, and we're assuming that would be, wait, are we thinking that's back in person or? Yeah.
If we do it in person, is that problematic?
Did I hear you right?
5 is a little early.
5 a.m.?
No, 5 p.m.
Mark, you can be there.
Make sure I hear what I'm hearing.
Paul, the idea is great to meet face to face, I think.
And would you
Albeit
be,
at a distance.
if we did 5 p.m., Jim, is that cutting it close for you to get there?
That works for me.
And Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I'd be a few minutes late.
Okay, why don't
Yeah,
we
me
do
too.
5
I think,
in person at the new town hall with socially distanced spacing?
5 o'clock, can you hear me? Am I?
Yes, yeah, you're-
muted? Okay. 5 o'clock's a little tight for me. I agree with Jeff, like wrapping up work and then driving, to a place. If it were 5 p.m. Zoom, I would be, that's why I asked the question. Even if it was 5:15, it would help me at least. I don't know about Jeff.
Yeah,
Do you agree? Or?
I agree.
5:15 p.m.
That'd be better.
7:16, 7:23.
Okay.
Hearing no objections, I've written them in pen.
Oh,
They're
What?
official. All right, moving on. We have our end of year transfers that we talked about. So we need a motion to authorize the superintendent of schools to make any necessary end of year's financial transfers. Do we have a motion for that? Jeff, do we have a second? Martha, discussion. All those in favor? Wave. Aye. Okay, thank you. And we have a policy, the emergency and disaster preparedness, pandemic, epidemic emergencies. Policy committee, any final comments on this? Updates?
I don't think so.
Uh,
I mean, this language
Nope.
was straight out of Cave, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we added the line under where it says temporary powers granted to the superintendent of schools. We added an end date for this policy. So this policy sunsets itself on June 30th, 2021, unless updated by the board.
So you're promising that we'll be done with all the COVID stuff by the end of June next.
Totally
We're gonna hold
guaranteed.
it to it.
That's what we're hoping.
Okay, so wording is to accept the recommendation of the superintendent of schools and the Board of Education Policy Committee and approve policy 6114.81, emergencies and disaster preparedness, pandemic, epidemic emergencies, emergency suspension of policy during pandemic. Do we have that motion?
So move.
Yeah. Second, Nancy O. Any other further questions?
Yeah, would you open it to conversation? Because I know there was at least a board member who had a question.
Yeah, it's open.
All right, so my question is, since nobody else spoke up, my question is, if we don't approve this policy, what would be the protocol if something has to happen? Will we have to have a special board meeting?
Yes, so what I was trying to avoid was, you know, if all of a sudden the governor says, look, everything's great, but I want schools to start after Labor Day, and he says this on July 15th, I would be able to, within 10 minutes, let everybody in the world know, here's our adjusted calendar that starts after Labor Day. But technically, in policy, it's the board that sets the calendar. So what this would do is, in that case, it would allow the superintendent to, you know, take the executive order and interpret it and adjust our calendar. It certainly would keep the board informed, but rather than try to create a meeting, it just gives families immediate notice as to any calendar change, for if it was a calendar change.
Right.
Now, if the board is uncomfortable, you know, you can give me the power to make the changes and use the word pending board approval, and I would certainly respect that as well.
Yeah, I mean, my challenge is that I kind of see it as the board shirking its responsibility. And that's what makes me uncomfortable.
So does that language Paul just said, pending board approval, does that help?
It does.
Or Mark?
Well, I mean,
So if there was a situation, like he said, the calendar.
right.
You know,
I mean, the calendar to me, the calendar is if that was the issue, I wouldn't have any problem with that. But I mean, that's an easy issue as an example.
Mhm.
But I'm thinking, and again, I don't have an example, but of something that's not as easy as just saying, well, we're gonna move the calendar around because we know we don't have a choice. The governor said you can't start until after Labor Day, so it's, you know, the board could get together and say, well, we don't like it, but we don't have an option. It's not like we can't start before Labor Day if the governor says you can't start before Labor Day.
Yeah.
But and again, I don't have an example of what it would be, but I'm leery of something that is more subjective than that. And the board's not involved in the decision. And then how do we defend that, saying, well, you know, I'm going to get on my soapbox for just a moment.
Yep.
One of my big issues, and this is not the same comparison, and I get it, but one of my big issues about this whole thing is that one person, the governor of the state of Connecticut, without any oversight of anybody else, the legislature is not involved, can make huge sweeping decisions. And there's no oversight. And I see this, and again, I trust Paul with anything and everything. If I needed heart surgery tomorrow, I'd probably have faith in Paul doing that heart surgery. But I still just, the concept is what makes me uncomfortable. It's really not anything else.
Well, Mark, could I just interject? We discussed this at the policy subcommittee, and most of what we're talking about really in this policy is a response to a government or health district order, which, just like you said about if the governor ordered the schools not to open, till after Labor Day, we wouldn't have it, we would have to comply with that. I think that's really the purpose of it.
Can that be
well
specified in the policy?
I mean, it is, and it is.
Maybe I missed it.
I don't have it memorized, but under temporary powers, the number one, it definitely says that to comply with guidance from appropriate health or government authorities. And really the other thing too, just to your comment about Paul, I think a lot of us feel that way about Paul, that we trust him implicitly, but that was actually one of our thoughts, putting the end date in it too, so that it didn't just exist in perpetuity for any superintendent at any time. We just, this is Paul that we're talking about, and we're putting it into place until the end of June, where we can review, and see if it's still necessary or not. To force the review of it, basically, was my thought. Do you see anything specific in here that?
So making it more clear, to Mark's point about that this would be, any decisions he makes under this policy would be in response to a governor directive, health district directive, an order. Would that help to have that more clearly stated?
I think that would make sense for me. Again, and I'm just looking at, I'm just looking at the words. I just want to be clear as I can be about this. So in the section that says temporary powers granted to superintendent of schools, the board grants to the superintendent the following temporary powers to address pandemic emergencies through June 30th, 2021. Number 3 is authority to enter into contracts without board approval for any dollar amount for the purchase of materials, equipment, supplies, or services, sanitation, and so on and so on and so forth. While another needs directly related to an emergency situation, provided such action is consistent with all applicable state and federal laws. So that, obviously it's connected to the pandemic and the issues related to the pandemic, but it doesn't say in that paragraph that, it's something the governor's dictated or the Chatham Health District has dictated, that would almost force the board to say, well, we have to go along with it because we have to go along with it.
Yeah.
And again, it's just the language that I'm having a hard time with.
All right, policy committee, does that make sense to you guys? And is that doable?
Yeah, Mark makes a good point. I agree with Mark.
Jeff, you were saying?
Yeah, I think it's that kind of edits can be easy to make.
Is there, do we know, has the town council made a similar concession with the town manager?
I do not know that. Paul, do you know anything about that? If the town side has done anything?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't know that they have.
And is there any way that we could move that date up to like right before December break to kind of reassess it? I agree with Mark and Jim on this one. I do feel Mark put it really well that this shirks our responsibility. I mean, we were elected to be on the Board of Education, and this is what we're faced with at this point in time. And again, I trust Paul, but this is our responsibility. Everything that comes out has East Hampton Board of Education on it. And while I see good sides and points to each, I agree. I think we were voted in for oversight, and this is part of our role.
I think the conversation during the subcommittee meeting, I feel like there were some really good examples given of, you know, when we would not have time to come together as a board and allow Paul to step in and say, you know, like to shut down a school. You know, on any given day, because there are 3 positive cases in the school. You know, it was really supposed to, I mean, to my understanding, it was designed to allow you the autonomy to move quickly without having to pull all of us together, that we would do so as quickly as we could afterward, or in the wake of a decision, but that it was giving you the autonomy to move quickly.
Okay.
That was my understanding.
Amanda?
Well, would it be possible to put in a word or two to underscore Martha's point, like this is to be when practical, or when, you know, like it doesn't to word it so that it would be clear that when it's practical, we will still be doing what we need to be doing, and we will be, you know, discussing afterwards, but that under the given circumstances, you know, to what Martha was talking about, that this is reflecting the state that we're in right now, if that makes sense. I mean, just something to make it clear that, like, we're not just not doing the job, as Amy was saying, but that there may be circumstances that arise that would necessitate this policy.
So we have a couple options now. When is our next meeting? Getting to my
August
calendar.
24th.
Well, who said what?
August 24.
Yeah. Okay. So we don't have a scheduled meeting anytime soon to make revisions on this. So we have a couple options. We can decide on revisions now and put them in, or Jeff and Nancy can withdraw their motion and we take this off the table totally. And we don't have the policy at all, and we continue with the way it's been going, that if something comes up, we would have to call an emergency meeting, get together. Under emergency meeting criteria, I think we do not have to post that meeting. If it is a non-emergency.
But it can be less than 24 hours.
Less than 24, yes. But if it's a non-emergency, we do have to have that 24-hour posting period. So those are our options. Let's start with Policy Committee. Thoughts on, after listening to the comments, what direction you would recommend?
No, I understand. I understand the concerns. I think I don't feel that this could be edited on the fly. However, I don't feel like I don't feel equipped right now to just make all the changes this very moment. I think if it were sent back to the committee and we had time, we could do it. But then again, we don't have another meeting for quite a while.
When I said what I said, I wasn't suggesting some giant I just was wondering if there was a simple word or two that could be inserted that made it clear that kind of why this is being put forth. You know, that when it's not practical when to meet, when it's there's such urgency in the decision that it's not practical to meet like we typically would.
Okay.
And I don't like, it seems like we should be able to throw in a word or two that conveys that. And I'm sorry, I'm not like articulating it as well as I should be.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Jeff?
So, all right. So it sounds like what we're getting at is to say that the temporary powers are to, and I just actually texted this to Nancy so she could see it, provide official and immediate response to any mandate by government or health officials pertaining to COVID-19. Right?
That works.
What was that, Mark?
I said, I think that works.
Okay. Amanda, does that kind of get to the direction you were thinking? I think Amanda's, no, you froze?
Jeff, I'm sorry, Chris. Jeff, where were you planning on putting that?
That would be the those. I have to actually open up the thing and look at it. But that would be the temporary powers that are granted.
Okay, in that temporary power section.
Yeah.
Amy, does that statement, actually, Jeff, if you want to read that again, what you proposed?
Sure. Provide, provide official and immediate response to any mandate by government or health officials pertaining to COVID-19. So if we have to comply,
and just to take it a few words further to address kind of what Amy and others were saying, you know, to add to that, when I lost what I was thinking, a reasonable amount of time, board can't meet, something in there. Amy, thoughts?
I think something that states like when a Board of Education meeting can't be, or we can't get a quorum or something to that. I also because of the way things are right now in the pandemic and all the changes, should we meet before August 24th? That seems, I don't know, just not a response. I mean, that's like a week before school starts.
and the retreat is not an official meeting, but I suppose we could make it one.
Yeah, I was just I'm making a side note to get back to that, so the calendar is set. So if we did decide to meet, it would be called a special meeting for whatever purpose we decide to meet. But yes, that is definitely possible we can do.
Okay.
You could make your retreat, since our retreat likely this year will be dealing with reopening, you could almost just make it a special meeting.
We could do that.
And then we can give this policy back to the policy subcommittee.
All right, policy subcommittee, are you happy with taking this back and then we do it at our special meeting?
Sure.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Thumbs up.
My only question with that is, without having established when that special meeting is going to be, does that tie Paul's hands from now until then? I just envision that he's going to have about a million things coming at him in the next weeks, months. I don't want to put ourselves and put him in a position where he is unable to do what he needs to do because it's a month or 6 weeks before that meeting gets scheduled.
Yep. So if we withdraw it and something happens, he's going to have to notify us and we're going to have a special meeting on it.
That
The
works for me.
policy subcommittee has 3 three scheduled meetings for July, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Why don't we take this up at our first one? And maybe we do need to have a special meeting to clarify this after that first meeting. So that should things come up this summer or in July, which they're likely to,
Yeah.
that Paul has the autonomy that he needs.
Okay, so let's plan on second, third week of July in that time frame of having a special meeting. And we'll tie it in with the retreat and address this policy. Does that work for Nancy? Okay, is that good with you?
Yeah, it's fine with me. I just want to make sure that Paul's able to do what he needs to do without, clearly our schedules are all over the place, even just trying to schedule this one meeting. And that's what concerns me.
Yeah.
Would you like to do July 20, Monday, July 20? Or July 13th, which is actually 3 weeks from tonight? That gives the policy subcommittee one meeting to put it together.
I think that's all we need, and I think the sooner the better.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so does July 13th as a special meeting retreat night work for everybody?
Works for me.
Yes.
I'm sorry, July 13th, you said?
Yes, Monday night.
At what time?
We could adjust it. We could keep it our normal. You know, it's a special meeting, so we're flexible.
How about 6
Well,
p.m.? 6 p.m.?
Works for me.
Works for me.
And would you
Okay.
like to do that one in person?
If we can meet in person, that would be nice.
You probably can meet in person. I think we're allowed up to 25 people. I
Yep.
think after July, a certain date in July, it's 50 people. If members, because it's a special meeting, people from the public can still come. But I
Yep.
think on a Monday night in July, you're not going to get that many people beating down the door of the town hall at 6 p.m. to come to your meeting.
Yeah. No. Okay, so we are planning on Monday, July 13th, 6 p.m., Town Hall, unless otherwise informed.
We'll do a special meeting at 6 and retreat at 6:30.
It's good
And
for me.
did Nancy and Paul, just for my notes, did they rescind their motion?
Not yet, we haven't gotten there yet.
Okay, sorry.
No, thank you though, yes. Want to make sure we get all the questions clarified. And then we have, Jeff made that motion, correct?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't remember. Was it me?
To approve the policy?
Yeah.
Yep, okay,
If you-
thank you.
if you're
So
gonna
Jeff,
rescind that motion, please.
okay, and Nancy, you're good with that, rescinding your second? Okay, so that is off the table. Whew, okay, we good? All right.
Very good.
Next, we have our next year's budget, which I hope everyone got a chance to watch the town council meeting a couple weeks ago about that. So do we have a motion to approve the final 2020-2021 Board of Education budget in the amount of $32,132,300?
So moved.
Mark, second.
A second.
Amanda had her hand up first. She beat you, Nancy. Comments on that? Questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Here we go. Okay. Future business. I think we got our future business planned. Unless there was any other items anyone needed to bring up, projects for the summer, things we need to do.
Just a quick question for capital. There was some talk in the fall about the middle school needing a new roof, and I forget who mentioned that that's a lengthy process. Has that process started yet, like with state reimbursement and all of that? 'Cause
The way my understanding is, it would be, I think, us and Paul to inform the town council, and the council would have to form a building committee. And once that is formed, then it's out of our hands and they have full control of it.
So
So
we were waiting for the finish of the town hall. I think the town council knows that it's coming, but Chris is right. It requires a referendum. It requires a building committee. The referendum, like they did with the high school, would have to approve the total cost of the project, which is probably $1.2 million. And it would be, as a roof project, it is reimbursable by the state at East Hampton's rate, which is about 50%.
Okay. Do we know when we're gonna start moving forward with that?
I think that's a conversation that we would have starting in the fall with the members of the
Okay.
town council.
Okay, I was
I
just curious.
definitely got Don involved in that and giving direction and guidance.
Because it's not, next fall, we would need to get it onto the legislators' budget for that particular year. The funds would be granted the following year.
Okay,
So it's, you get it approved one year, then you get the funding the next year.
I have a question for future business, possibly. Would the moving of the purchase of technology into the Board of Ed budget require discussion at a meeting and a vote?
I will be candid that we've already had that conversation with the town council, and they are very supportive of us moving Chromebooks into our operating budget for next year. But like I said, that needs to be a September discussion. It always is a March discussion after the boards approve their policy, their budget, and I've already put the budget together back in October, November. So I anticipate that we will be having a formal conversation with the town council in September on that.
Okay, thank you.
Because there would need to be an understanding that, if we're going to put $100,000 worth of Chromebooks in, our budget is going to be plus 100,000 on whatever is approved in that first year.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Personnel. Oh, sorry. Question?
sorry, just one more question really quick.
Yep.
Are we completely out of the Board of Ed building downtown now?
No,
No.
we have vacated it. We still have items in the garage.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
But
And
the
there's-
building part is empty.
There's been no, has there been any further communication about possibly other, other uses for that? I know there was some talk before.
Yeah, there was talk. I had a conversation with the town manager. I had conversations with several of the town council members. I think with COVID and the process they were going through with the budget, it was on no one's radar at this point. I think it will get back on people's radar because obviously they need to do something with the building. But to be honest, I'm not pushing us out of the garage because I've got to pay $150 a month to rent a unit. So I'm staying in the garage until they make us move out.
Okay.
And they have items in there too. The recreation department has items in there. They would need to rent a storage unit.
Okay.
All right, so now do we have a motion to extend the superintendent's contract? Martha has her hand up. Amanda, second. Discussion on that. I will start by saying thank you, Paul. Your initiative, your leadership, guidance, direction that you've given this whole district through this whole time. And even prior to that, you've just set an example and you've set the bar high for everybody. And I appreciate that.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It was a unanimous. Congratulations, you're stuck with us again for another year on top of that contract.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yes. Now, final audience of citizens. I think we have a few people left. Not hearing anybody. I don't want to skip. Okay, with that, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion?
Jim, Amanda had her hand up second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night. Thank you, everyone.
Everybody
I-
take care.
Everybody.